City Council's Subcommittee on Water Issues, calling the meeting to order. And we'll start with roll call, please.
Member Good.
Present.
Member Fruworth.
Here.
And I will note if and when Member Gambogi arrives in the minutes.
So I'm glad to know we now have a quorum. And we'll move through our discussion and action items. Item A. 3A.
Selection of replacement chair for the Subcommittee on Water Issues to serve through November 2025.
Well, I'd be happy to serve as chair. I've been involved in water management policies for quite a number of years now, probably over a decade. And I was so proud to receive this certificate of attendance at the Water Utility Leadership Forum that we had up in Flagstaff last month. Not that that really means anything, but other than a verification that I continue to work on water issues both locally, county-wise, northern Arizona, and even statewide. So I would be happy to move to nominate myself as the new chairman for the Subcommittee on Water Issues.
I will second your nomination.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Passes 2-0.
So we don't get even a screen show of that vote? Oh, well, you'll just have to agree with us. All right, we'll move to item 3B.
Approval of the April 1st, 2025 Council Subcommittee on Water Issues meeting minutes.
I move to approve the minutes as presented.
Well, I will have to abstain on that since I was not present, but an abstention is considered a positive vote.
It is. You could also verify with Member Fruworth that the minutes accurately reflect what took place at the meeting. And if you feel comfortable with her confirming that, you can vote. Because I do need a
If
second.
you'd rather have me vote yes, then after receiving your verification that these minutes are complete and accurate.
I would not move to approve them if they weren't.
Knowing you, Lois, that doesn't surprise me. So let's vote to approve those minutes. There we go.
Passes 2-0.
Okay, item 3C.
Presentation and discussion regarding the 2024 annual water withdrawal and use report.
Good morning, Water Issues Subcommittee. Brian Reese. I'm the Water Resources Manager here for the City of Prescott under the Community Development Department. And today I wanted to go over with you some of the reporting that we did for ADWR earlier this year and put it in a context where we can tell you about some of the values that we have to report to ADWR, let you know where we stand in our pumping, and take the opportunity to kind of also discuss our different water sources and how we're using them so that you understand that as you're moving through your roles within here. So I put together this little diagram right here that we'll kind of use as a basis for this presentation. Kind of covering the three sources of water that we have here and that we report to AWR for. As part of the Prescott AMA, we have to report on our groundwater pumping, we have to report on the effluent that we generate, and the surface water that we utilize for recharge. So as we move through the presentation, I'll break this down into these three components, and we'll kind of discuss them independently. Just for visual representation, I think you you have a good understanding of an acre foot of water. But acre foot of water is approximately 325,000 gallons and utilized in water resources to represent water, since the volume is quite large. So this just shows a representation of 1 acre foot of water kind of visualized over a football field, 1 foot in depth. So we want to start out with our production wells, our groundwater pumping. 8 wells currently in production. Actually, I think it's 7 wells currently in production. Our airport well 5 is currently offline because of the PFAS issues. But we have wells at 2 different fields. Up in Chino Valley is our main source of pumping, and then we have our supplemental pumping source at the airport. In our annual report this year,
Councilwoman Furworth had a question.
I'll wait until he gets through the content, and then I have a question.
Okay, sounds good. So we got with our water ops department, and they keep detailed information on all the water that was pumped. This year we reported a total pumping of 7,292 acre feet. We reported a total deliveries of 6,580 acre feet. So ADWR reporting has multiple categories, 10 categories that we report, from single family residential to multifamily, commercial, industrial. And you'll see these different categories on another slide a little later. But adding up all of those categories is what we have in our metered water that we report in our deliveries. The other part of our deliveries is our unmetered water. So our water ops department, they keep a running account and as best as possible estimates of unmetered water. So this water is water that's used in production and our distribution lines. If we have to purge, if we're doing some type of maintenance on it and it requires that we're pushing water through it to see if it's working efficiently or if we're getting the pressures we need, those type of things. Inspections that come about, and they have to utilize some water in inspections. Our fire department in their training exercises might use water. So water department keeps kind of a running tab on all the unmetered water that could be used, and they provide both the metered water and the unmetered water in what's called a potable loss use report. So they generate all of that water in those deliveries. This year we reported 6,580. And then what we do is we take the pumped water, the total pumped, and we minus the deliveries, and that last column, lost and unaccounted for, is what we report as the water that is probably lost in through our system as it goes from our wells to our customers.
So I have 2 questions. I wanted to confirm the timetable of this. Is this our fiscal year, or is this some other ADWR time frame?
A calendar year.
Calendar
year, yes.
Okay.
That's what we report to ADW.
And I know I asked the same question last year when you shared this report, but I didn't have a chance to go back and look. Is 9.7% loss or unaccounted for acceptable in our standards? How does this compare to previous fiscal years?
It was high compared to previous fiscal years. So we're working with water ops and determining what things that could have possibly happened that kind of got our unaccounted for loss and unaccounted for up a little bit higher. But it is acceptable. Under 10% is where we need to be for ADWR, and that's on an average, rolling 3-year average, I believe, under 10%. So we were under that threshold. Historically, we've seen from 5%, which seemed a little bit low, reported last year, and usually hovering around the 7 or 8% mark.
You will have an analysis and try and figure out how do we go from 5% to 9.7?
Yeah, we'll be talking with it on water ops. It'll also be one of the things that we're looking at in our long-term water management plan. Is strategies to reduce loss and unaccounted for, both on the potable water side and the wastewater side, because they represent opportunities that we can tighten up our tighten up the water so that we can utilize our water more efficiently for longer before we have to start looking for newer sources.
Thank you.
So, okay, so then moving on to our treated effluent, we monitor and report on 3 facilities, the airport water reclamation facility, the Sundog wastewater treatment plant, and the Hassayampa water treatment plant. Total treated reported for this year was 4,676 acre feet. As you can see, based on that schematic, treated effluent is used for 2 different purposes. Some of the water is shipped over for direct delivery, golf courses, industrial use, construction, those type of things. And the remainder of it goes to our underground storage facility. So similar to our water ops group, our wastewater group provides us with a summary of what's called the annual wastewater report summary. And in that, they calculate all of the treated effluent from all 3 of those facilities. They give us the direct delivery. I didn't put it on this slide, but for this year, the direct delivery was 1,529 acre feet. And then they give us the total recharge for the effluent that goes to our underground storage facility, which was 2,407 acre feet. And then similarly, we determine our losses, our loss and unaccounted for, by taking the total treated and then subtracting out the sum of the recharge water for effluent and the direct deliveries, and that came out to 740 acre feet. And very similarly, we're talking to our wastewater group, and we're devising strategies that we can incorporate into long-term water management plan, because it's a significant opportunity there to reduce that water and use it more effectively. We call it demand management, and it's going to be a big part of our long-term water management plan.
Do we make any of this reclaimed water available for construction activities?
Yes, I believe we do.
And where can those trucks that use it for keeping dust down during construction, where can they acquire this?
So they have a standpipe. I'm not sure the exact location of it. Steve, do you have that location for us? Right by Sundog. So, yep. So then they can access that water through that.
Yeah, I just hate to see potable water being used to keep down dust.
Yeah, no, definitely. We use it as effectively as we can. At some points, if our direct delivery contracts, we can't deliver through effluent to support those contracts, then we have to move to potable deliveries. But
I'd like to see that measured somehow. I know a lot of the work that's being done out there at the big Pioneer Parkway and Williamson Valley Road, they use potable water. And of course they meter it and they're charged for it. Mm-hmm. But I'd like to see how much is actually being provided for these types of construction activities, so we can decide whether a policy needs to be created to only allow reclaimed water. But if it's not huge, it may not be worth the effort. Okay. But if it is a big number, then I'd like to see it required.
Right. Yeah.
Mayor, we did talk this last year, and one of the points that Gwen and others brought up is that we don't have the infrastructure to make this readily available. And so that's the problem, why they allow so much construction to use potable water. But I totally agree with you. I was against it. Yeah, good.
If it's a big number, then maybe we need to get some infrastructure designed to provide that.
Okay. We can definitely work up some numbers so we can discuss it. So our next water source, surface water, comes from 2 reservoirs that the city owns, Watson and Willow Lake. We are able to recharge from both of those lakes through a recharge season starting on April 1st. Goes through November 31st. The 3 is left off there, but through November 31st. So we're able to recharge through that period. We do have a limitation on how much we can recharge. This year, we recharged and reported 1,161 acre feet. That's going to that underground storage facility located at the airport wastewater treatment plant. For comparison, obviously, this water source is our most variable, depending on the lake levels in any given year. For comparison, last year we reported almost 3,900 acre feet of recharge from the lakes. So significantly less this year. That is kind of the trend. If you look at what we recharge from the lakes on an average annual basis, you'll see that chart just swings variably from year to year. So the nature of that.
What's the
water
maximum
source.
allowed?
Maximum allowed is right at is 3,900. We basically recharged to the maximum allowed last year. So underground storage facility. So as we talked about earlier, it takes treated effluent that is brought to the underground storage facility, our recharge basin as we call them, and the surface water. So those are our sources. And the reported values, again, kind of in summary, 1,161 acre feet from surface water, 2,407 acre feet from effluent recharge. So a total of 3,568 acre feet recharged through our recharge facility that we reported to ADWR. So use of the recharge. So we have several options that we can use recharge for.
Councilwoman Furworth?
Thank you, Mayor. Question: does there an ADWR maximum allowed that we could total recharge in a
Yes,
calendar year?
there is. I can get you that number. I don't know it off the top of my head.
Just a ballpark.
Leslie, do you have a ballpark? Okay, 12 to the 14,000
Wow.
range.
Okay,
for the permit.
thank you.
Yep, thanks, Leslie. So, we have several options to use our recharge in any given year. We can, one, use it to offset groundwater pumping. We call that recovered water. Surface water coming from our lakes must be recovered in the year that it was received. So it has to be used for recovered water. So we have no choice on that. So all 1,161 acre feet was reported to offset our groundwater pumping for this year. Treated effluent, it can be used for recovered water. It can also be used, wrong way. It can also be used and converted to long-term storage credits. So long-term storage credits allow us to bank this water and use it in the future. We do have two accounts at this point. We have a recoverable account, which we could claim in the future as we need it, and we have an unrecoverable account. That unrecoverable account is basically there for Proposition 400, which was approved, I think, back in about the 2008-2009 timeframe. This proposition, which is in city charter, required that any land areas that were annexed over 250 acres, that basically all of the effluent recovered from those areas was applied to permanent recharge. So what we did is we set up an account with ADWR called a non-recoverable account. And then every year, as we do our reporting, these areas that fit the definition of Prop 400 are identified, and we make a calculation of how much water was recovered from the sewer from them, and we move that into our unrecoverable account. So, and then the rest of it is open for our recoverable long-term storage account. So we can use it for that. This year in 2024, we basically split it in half. We took 1,200 acre feet and applied it to recovery, offsetting our groundwater pumping, and we took about 1,200 acre feet and applied it to our long-term storage credit. One of the main goals, or one of the goals in the long-term water management planning and strategies that we're putting together is looking at what would be the best way to utilize this water, whether we take it to recover groundwater pumping or offset groundwater pumping, or whether we bank it for long-term storage use. Looking to, with our consultants and our department, explore strategies on the best way to use this. Are we going to use it for a rainy day fund? Are we going to use it for some specific development strategies that we have in the future, or and then try to create a strategy for using that water so that we're not just kind of arbitrarily saying 50-50 sounds fairly good this year. We have a plan moving forward on how we're using it. So. Okay, so a summary of our annual report. At this point in time, we've covered most of these numbers. I won't go ahead and read them all again, but when you take, when ADWR takes all of the information that they gave us and applies it to their formulas and everything, the amount that comes up as the groundwater pumped or withdrawn for this year was 4,931 acre feet. We are charged $2 an acre foot for each acre foot of that water. So we paid ADWR a fee of $9,861.06. That went along with our annual report. That money will go to ADWR, but specifically to our AMA. I'm not sure if it's exactly all of it or a portion of it, but a lot of the funds are made available for grants and available through our AMA for conservation measures or other things that we have available to us. So we have an opportunity to get some of that money back. So the next part of the slide, I just wanted to go over and just give you some basic information. I think it's applicable to this particular meeting because we're setting the budgets for the next 6 months. But just to give you a snapshot in time of how we're using our water in year 2024. So the charts here shows.
So this is the last 6 months?
The last year. Oh, it was from January 1st to December 31st of 2024. So the chart here shows our potable deliveries. The categories on the bottom are the ones that we monitor through ADWR. And the first number represents the acre foot above the bar chart, and the second, the percentage of those deliveries for each of these. So you can see we're fairly heavy on single family residential. Our next category is commercial, followed by multifamily, and then dropping off fairly considerably after that for the remainder of the categories. Deliveries, residential use, just to give you a snapshot of where the breakdown between single-family residential and multifamily is at this point in time. About 85% single-family residential, 15% multifamily. The three significant categories that we report to ADWR is our residential, our non-residential, and then we have a separate breakdown of turf use between large turf facilities and small turf facilities. So this kind of shows a breakdown of how much turf water is utilizing non-residential and residential. And then just a quick comparison, in case you're interested, between what we reported in 2023, shown in the orange, and what we reported in 2024, shown in the blue, or excuse me, vice versa. Blue shown in for 2023 and orange shown for 2024. There's not a whole lot you can decipher from this graph. It shows pretty steady. It shows a little bit up and down depending on the year for single family, for commercial, multifamily residential. At the end of the day, we've been fairly consistent in our pumping over the last decade or so. There's a slight trajectory up of around 1% for every year, and we kind of were on that trajectory last year. There was nothing that pulled us off that. With that, that was basically my presentation. If there's anything that you wanted to see more specific, and I took note on the measurement for the construction usage of potable water, but after reviewing this, feel free to just contact me and I can get you any specific information on the report. That's obviously, we report a lot more numbers than what I just went over here, but hopefully this gives you a good overview of what we're reporting. If it generates any questions for you, we're happy to assist you and try to answer those.
Well, if we assume the same amount of conservation use of water, and if we agree that we're growing at 1.5 to maybe 1.7% in population, shouldn't we expect to see a similar amount of deliveries in that percentage range as well?
Yeah, if everything is held equal. Yeah, if everything's held equal, I think that's a good baseline. And then we're in the long-term water management planning, we're trying to establish a baseline of our water use. And then we're looking at various opportunities within demand management. On the customer side, what can we do to be effectively have customers reduce their gallons per capita daily use? We're looking at maybe breaking that GPCD down a little bit so we can see single-family residential, where they're at, our commercial use, some other categories where they're at, where we can best get our best bang for the buck in strategies to reduce on that end. And then there's the whole other end, which is on the municipality side. So that was that loss and unaccounted for water. What strategies and what analysis do we need to do to pinpoint where we can, and what kind of infrastructure maybe we can generate over the next 10 years that will reduce those water uses, and what benefit will that give to us? Add those two together, and that's demand. Those are demand management strategies. It's one of our most powerful tools that we have available because, as you know, we don't have a huge amount of alternative water sources available to us. And what we do have available to us can be quite expensive. So
I think if you combine the multifamily residential with the single-family residential, you're probably up around, 1.3, something like that.
yeah.
So that's probably pretty close to the growth rate. And if we're below that growth rate, then we're probably conserving or doing a little more efficient use of that water.
Yeah.
So.
Oh.
Moving us along.
Okay, will do.
Okay, is that all we have today?
That was all for that.
Item D, 2022 Water Management Policy Discussion, Current Residential, Non-Residential Water Budget Overview for January 1st, 2025 through May 19th, 2025.
All right. So according to the, I guess we have the second amendment to the 2022 water policy officially is at this point in time. But according to the, we'll just call it the amended water policy, policies 11 through 13, semi-annual budgets are set for the year. For January 1st through June 30th, 25 acre feet was set for the residential budget, and also 25 acre feet was set for the non-residential budget. So with this presentation, what we'll do is we'll just go over to date where we're at within those budgets in terms of water that was given out. So for January 1st, 2025 through May 19th, 2025, which was the last date that we could report on this and have this ready for this meeting, we had 3 single-family residential homes that were approved administratively, and one senior living home that was approved through council. At 5.6 acre feet, gave us a total of 6.9 acre feet approved for the period. Out of the 25, we have 18.1 remaining in the residential budget at this point. Non-residential budget.
Councilwoman Furworth.
Thank you, Mayor. So we did approve the Marina Street project on May 13th. And if I think about that, I know you don't take it out of the budget, but I mentally always take it out of the budget.
Definitely.
So what was the total for Marina Street?
So
Do you
Marina
remember?
Street was 13.24 is the number that comes to mind.
That sounds about right to me. Yep.
And it's in the very next following presentation that we're doing for the 6th year, it will note that Marina Street so
Thank
that
you.
you have that in mind. Okay. And so non-residential, we also had 4 projects approved. 3 of them were approved administratively at less than 1.5 acre feet. And we had the Embry-Riddle Student Union that was approved early this year at 11.33. So total for the period is 12.52. Out of the 25 budget, leaving a remaining of 12.49 acre feet in the budget for this period. And then our third column, although not taken out of the budget, these we do track water that was allocated for existing contracts. So this last table shows the 20 water service applications that were approved for the period. Almost all of them were single-family residential. I think we have 1 self-storage non-residential in there. The total of the water in existing contracts was 4.36 acre feet for the period. 4.39 acre feet for the period. So with that is just a brief snapshot of where we are on the water budget at this point in time. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer.
So that CVID allocation that went to Chino Valley.
Yeah, that is exactly right. Yep. And that 1.3 acre feet is based on the contract obligations or the IGA obligations for water delivered to that parcel. So, yes, what we've decided is that we need to follow the mandate of the contract when we are tracking. So that number is probably a little bit higher than the normal 0.25 given per residential. It doesn't mean they're using 1.3, but what it means is that we, based on the contract, have obligated 1.3.
I would love, in the spirit of the long-term water management plan, and the impending regional partnership we're going to have with Chino Valley, as discussed a week ago. I would love to start seeing the worm, actual versus contract, so we can start better allocating or revising potentially contracts to be within what reality actually is. That would be good insights to have as we approach Chino Valley. Thank you.
Okay.
I think we only have 2 deliveries in Chino Valley, the church and 1 other development. So is that the second one?
So that's the commercial corridor IGA, I believe. We have 2.
Yeah.
And then we have our, yeah, exactly, our CVID. Okay. Oh. Thank you, Leslie. Yeah. So we have that historic contract obligation.
When we
then we have
acquired
our
the Watson and Willow Lake, then there was an agreement and a contract from the CVID.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
So the other ones are just the commercial corridor, and that's where they have the 2 deliveries right now.
And then I believe the historic contract on its own for, sorry, what was it? Chino Meadows. Yeah. So for that particular development.
What's Chino Meadows?
Good morning, Leslie Grazer, Water Resource Project Manager. So Chino Meadows 1 is contract the city had probably back in the 70s to serve a subdivision. And then we have other little, sometimes pockets of existing agreements within that area because the transmission mains come out of Chino into the city. If they pass by sometimes there was a contract that was entered into by the city with that.
So where is that?
Chino Meadows.
Yeah.
It's almost as far north as you can get in Chino Valley, and it's on the east side of the highway.
So
It's
is that
near-
by Old Town Banner.
Not quite that far, but generally up that direction. Yeah, we can provide you a map.
Yeah, I think I know where that is. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Leslie.
Okay, moving on to item, 3E?
Presentation and discussion regarding the July 2025 through December 2025 residential and non-residential water budgets.
Okay, so moving right along, per our amended water policy guideline number 11, the city council will set the water budget for residential, non-residential developments on the last meeting in June and December of each year. So we're at that period. So on agenda today is a discussion and recommendations that we'll have for council for setting those residential and non-residential budgets. Okay, so, whoops, excuse me. Okay, so first of all, what we have for you is just a summary. You just heard the numbers for this year. They're cumulative, so they're the same. So here we have a table for you to just recaps those usages we just talked about. Out of the residential budget set for 25 acre feet for the first part of this year, we have 18.1 left. For the non-residential budget for the first part of the year, there was 12.48 left. And as noted earlier, council did approve one residential project for 13.24 acre feet. That had to go through the appeal process. It doesn't get removed from the budget during the appeal process, but it was water that was allocated, just for your information. So we have those numbers for you, and what we have also is we've generated a list of projects that have come through PAC or that we know are coming up for permitting that could fall within this next period, to try to give you just an understanding of best of what we know as what might be coming in the door for the period of July through December. So these are the potential residential PACs that we see and other projects that we know about. Adding them all together, we get about 34.3 acre feet of water. What we know is that not all of these will come through. I'd say historically we're looking at 25% to 75%. It's very, as you know, it's very based on if the project moves and a lot of different factors. Our expected range would be
Councilwoman Furworth?
I'm going to move along because I'm worried about everybody showing up.
Okay.
I had some questions on this chart. I looked these all up. I loved all the infill. Small developments going on throughout the city. That's awesome. That does make me concerned that we don't put these people through lots of rework going through appeal processes. But one thing that caught my eye was the third one down, Stetson Road Apartments, 48 units. If I multiply that times the 0.12, we get to 5.76 plus landscape, and I mentally got myself to 6.5.
Yeah.
So I was good with that. But when I compared that further down on the list, Touchmark TPAZ Villas, 63 apartments, and the water is only 2.0. That just seemed incredibly low. And I understand it's senior living and there's things going on, but it just seemed incredibly low if these are villas that people are going to be living in, running their own lives. So I just had that in the back of my head. If you all could take a look at that, just to make sure we're in the range. But I just was, in my mind, bumping up the bottom of the addition because I just didn't want to cut them short in our planning.
No, thank you for bringing that up. Touchmark actually has water in a contract, in a water service agreement that was done before. And when that pack came in, it looked like we asked the development to reassess the water needs based on their latest proposal. And just by kind of a very high-level analysis, it looked like they may exceed their current water by 2 or 3 acre feet. So that's where that number was generated as an estimate.
So the 2 or 3 is just the extra on top of the bank, in essence, they have with the city.
Yeah.
Okay, thank
and
you.
That
That
was
makes a lot of sense.
It was a high-level evaluation, but just to try to make it more reasonable as to what the water was going to be used, because we knew they already had water available in their WSA. Yeah. Yep. Okay, so that gives you kind of the idea of what's going on with the residential, and then same thing with the non-residential. We added up all our packs that came in, everything that we know about, came up to about the same, 34.5 acre feet of water as a potential. And it's hard to predict, but a range of 10 to 30 is probably reasonable for that. So we just give you those numbers so that you can kind of assess and see what you would like to recommend to council for the water budgets for the last half of this year.
How many units are going to be in that Granite Creek Village in White Spar?
Let me see.
Is it single family and multifamily?
Let me see, the Granite Creek Village. I'd have to look it up, Mayor, to on that pack to get that exact number for you. I don't know it off the top of my head. Let me see. Was that back on the residential? Yes. Okay. I looked at this one. I can get the number for you, Mayor. I don't want to give you a number that's way off.
But it would have to be substantial with the 7 acre feet.
Yeah,
request. We're
exactly,
talking
but I just
probably
don't-
40 to 50 something.
Yeah, and I don't remember the breakdown between their multifamily and the single family off the top of my head. Oops.
Please continue.
Okay. Yep, that's basically all that I have for you at this point in time. If you want to, at this point, we can make that recommendation for setting the budget.
Let's look at non-residential here.
As I was studying this, my coming in position was again, because I don't want to put all these small little projects through exception after exception, I was thinking to at least 25 so that we can get a lot accomplished.
Well, I think we can maintain our 25-25 allocation.
I concur.
Okay.
So I guess I'm moving to establish the 25-25 split between residential and non-residential allocations for the remaining 6-month period of the year. So I have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Did you second? Member Brewer, thank you.
Yeah.
Passes 2-0. Item F, presentation and discussion regarding an update on PFAS consultant contract.
Good morning, Steve Wolfers, Utilities Manager. I'm here today to talk a little bit about where we are in our PFAS scope. Obviously, PFAS is a hot topic, and we're all still trying to figure out exactly how to deal with it. So we have developed a contract scope that would allow us to make some decisions based on some engineering standards and what the latest technology is. So I'm going to quickly go through this. This is pretty technical, and I apologize, but it's hard to make geology non-technical, but we'll do our best. So just a quick recap, PFAS is the fluoridated carbons that we've been talking about. There's tens of thousands species out there. They're everywhere, ubiquitous in the environment. So we have a big challenge on our hands to have to try to eliminate PFAS in our water system. So we've talked about a lot of these quite a bit, what they're released into the wastewater system. My shirt has PFAS, everything has PFAS that doesn't stick to things. And so we can't remove them from the wastewater stream at this time either. So we have, again, quite a chore. So just some background. In May of 2022, ADEQ tested all of our city wells, and we found all the wells have some kind of level of PFAS in them. Unfortunately, our airport well 5 was the one that has much higher than what the required MCL is going to be. So new rules were issued in 23. Maximum contaminant levels were set at 4 parts per trillion for 2 species, which are the main species, are PFOS and PFOA. I'm not going to try to pronounce them. Oh, yes. And as well as other species that were regulated as a mixture. So we started doing our monthly testing and then went to quarterly testing as required by ADEQ. Our current levels at the Chino wells are 4 parts per billion or 4 parts per trillion or below. And the only one that's in the danger zone is the airport well 5. In fall of last year, we got our RSQ together and got a consultant to start developing recommendations on how to bring well 5 and other wells into compliance. And we just got a kind of a retraction a little bit from our EPA. They've reduced the number of regulated PFAS substances to just the big 2, the PFOS and the PFOA. And instead of having us be in compliance by May of 2029, they gave us another couple years. So the new compliance date is 2031. And what that means is that that's where we have to be in complete compliance with our water system. At this point, we are, because we're not running well 5. But if we were to run well 5, then that's where the compliance date would be for May 2031. So right now, we are not out of compliance in any way because there are no rules that are official that EPA recognizes or
So if
ADEQ.
we maintain the airport well number 5 out of the system over that period of time, we should be able to meet the 2031 requirements.
We will, yes.
Do we have the capacity to be able to provide demand with well 5 out of the system?
At this point, we do. But at our projected growth rates, we feel we have enough capacity for a number of years. But we don't know what's going to happen with, I always plan for the worst. And so, I always want to have a little bit in my pocket in case we need it. So well 5 would give us that option if we needed to make up whatever potable water we need in the system.
So if we brought 5 back online, we'd have to have our own mitigation process at that well exclusively because it's not connected to the rest of the system, right?
Well 5 is connected to the system, but it's its own entry point to the distribution system. So that's the point at which you have to meet all the criteria from ADEQ. At this point, again, PFAS is not regulated. It's coming. 2031 it will be regulated, but right now it's not. So we would not suffer anything from ADEQ if we decided to turn well 5 on. But our goal is to get well 5 operational under the new MCLs. So that would be where
Was that your plan, to be able to have some mitigation process going out at well 5 by itself?
That's correct. That is the general idea of where the direction we're going. But we've asked these consultants to give us an idea of making sure we're going in the right direction. All right, so our consultant contract, they give us a big menu of things that we can choose from. And of course, each one comes with a cost and a length of time in which it takes to accomplish it. So the first part that they've offered us is called a hydrogeologic evaluation, which essentially studies the aquifer. Where should we site new wells? Where's the best shot so that if we do drill a well, we're going to find the most water? So that's something that we need for the future, because eventually we will be siting another well or two out at the airport area. So we want to be ready and have that as a possibility. This is something that we're in the discussion about if we need it today or if we need it in 10 years. So we're kind of back and forth on this one. Another thing that they gave us the option was particle tracking. This essentially would use some very low level, short half-life radioactive isotopes that we would put in our ponds at the airport plant, our percolation ponds, and then we'd see if they show up in our wells. So it really kind of gives us an idea of if the wastewater treatment plant is influencing our aquifer, and if it is, by how. So it's kind of a cool thing. I don't understand how it works, and so there's some things going on there, but it would be a really neat idea to have that ability to see what's going on underground.
Councilwoman Furworth.
Thank you, Mayor. I know we talked last year at some point about this issue, and one of the things that we were talking about with the long-term water management plan is, and I like the science of what I'm seeing here, because the question is always, it came up even with the quick trip gasoline, what is upstream from our wells, and how much land do we have to think about being proactive in protecting from whatever kind of development that is spoiling our water. And so I when I was reading this pre-reading, I was like, the science, I love it. So I'm cool with what you're planning. Thank you.
Well, we only believe in science, so the data tells the story. So we will be looking into that. Continuing, we have alternate treatment methods. We have an opportunity to blend at Chino, so that we want to get a blending plan put together and make sure that we know what we need to do, how to run the different wells to accomplish. We not only have to accomplish PFAS, but we also have to accomplish arsenic blending. So unfortunately, the two wells that are high in arsenic are low in PFAS. So we're going to have to try to figure out how those all work together to give us the best result coming out of the Chino system. So we also have individual wellhead treatment, and then talking about a centralized treatment system. The airport would be prime for that, in that we could have every well that's affected by PFAS pumped to a central location and treat it there. We could also do that at Chino as well, bring all the wells into the water system there at Chino, and we could then treat it from there as well. So there's a lot of options, but again, weighing the options and the money and et cetera. So we'll be looking into that. We're going to look at some technologies as to how we actually remove the PFAS. GAC is right now the most popular. Ion exchange, of course, is a different style of GAC, but a little bit different. And then Fluorosorb is another treatment system out there that is making some waves. So we really would like to look at as many technologies as we can, but we have to consider how scalable they are, because some of these systems are wonderful when they work on a bench, but when I'm trying to put 10 million gallons a day, maybe not so much. So they're going to help us work out that and how maybe these would be laid out, because everything has yard piping, you have tanks, you have all kinds of different apparatus that have to be dealt with in our layouts. And of course, we don't have infinite amount of land, so we have to really limit what we can do here. One of the last couple things we're going to do is an overall alternate recommendations. So this will help us give some decision-making criteria, essentially developing a process that will allow us to say, okay, when we're coming up to the next well, now we say, okay, these are the things we have to consider, and they will help us with that. And then we'll have some final conceptual layouts and costs, which will be the big ticket, the big selling point there. And then finally, all of these technical memos will be combined into one, and they will start working on our phasing. How are we going to deal with it immediately? How are we going to deal with it in 10 years? And then what is our thought 20 plus years out? So we have a pretty neat contract coming up. We're going to have several workshops, including a public meeting for council and or WISC, depending on where we want to have it, and then a public outreach as well, so that our public can see what direction we're going. So we're not quite at notice to proceed yet. We're not quite at NTP. So the understanding is that they'll get tech memos every 2 to 4 weeks or so, and staff will be reviewing those and making sure that they're accurate to what we're after. So generally, the contract, if we took all of these things, would take about 60 weeks to complete. So we are still in the process of paring it down. We would love to have all these things, but all these things come with expenses too. So we need to try to stay in budget as best we can. Any questions or concerns associated with that, with PFAS? Always willing to ask.
Well, attending the Wolf Conference up in Flagstaff, it's clear that they're dealing with being able to scale up some of these what seem to be pretty effective treatments. But, you know, when you're talking about a municipal water system, you're talking about a high volume capability, and certainly these things like ion exchange move at a slower pace to be effective. And if you speed it up, then you lose the effectiveness. So I think there's still going to be quite a bit of innovation coming out of this, out of treatment processes, because I was talking to somebody up there and they were saying the market here has a potential $1 trillion market. I mean, it's such a vast amount of treatment going on throughout the country that there's bound to be some real new technologies coming into effect. And of course, we have to have the time to monitor those new technologies to find out if they really work effectively, to be able to adopt them. And fortunately, I think we as a city are in a pretty good position to be able to take our time to evaluate this and not necessarily spend a ton of money on current technology just to find out that 3 or 4 years or 5 years down the road, it's obsolete. So I think that's the real challenge that you're going to have, Steve, is to look at what's currently available, what's cutting edge and on the verge of being available, and then what do we select, and at what point do we start implementing that?
Yeah, all those are very true, absolutely. And we have some community partners in Chino Valley and Prescott Valley that are trying out different technologies that we'll be able to watch and see how it works for them. Their water is pretty much our water, so it will be a good to have a chance to see what they're up to and see how those are working for them.
Very good.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you much.
Good luck, Steve. Hate to have to think of luck is involved, but might have to be.
Presentation and discussion regarding proposed state water legislation.
Okay. So just wanted to give you an update since the last time. We've been talking about water bills since the beginning of this year, trying to track them, see what's happening with the legislature. So this is our latest installment, maybe one of our last two, probably. It looks like we're getting towards the end of things. In recap, NAMWA, our Northern Arizona Municipal Water Users Association, provides the service of helping us track and also lobby as needed for water bills as they come through the legislature. NAMWA this year supported 29 bills and opposed 39 bills, neutral on the rest of them. One of the other tracking sources I wanted to share with you was that Arizona Department of Water Resources has a legislative affairs portion of their website, and they put out a summary of bills that they're tracking and a status. So it's a good source of information for water bills as we're moving forward. When I was putting this presentation together, their last one was on May 2nd. They actually have one that went through May 30th that I just have a little bit of information for you. As you know, these things just keep changing day by day. So some of my slides are obsolete, and I'll give you the best information I have at this point in time. So legislative session ended on May 23rd, and my understanding is that a budget has to be passed by June 30th of this year. So they're willing and dealing and working on it, I guess, at this point in time. At the point of this slide, 11 water bills were vetoed by the governor. Several more have been vetoed. We'll go over those a little bit. I provided this in your information packet. We're not going to go over this piece by piece or at all. This was for information for you to kind of understand what type of bills we're going through, what their status was. If anything on that list strikes you as you want some more information about it, contact me, and I'll bring you up on the latest of it. I don't think most of them have really moved since I put this together. Basically, if it hasn't made it out of committee, or it's pretty much dead in the water. So governor signed bills at the time when I did this. These were the two bills that the governor had signed: HB 2691, groundwater replenishment district annual dues, and HB 2727, county water authority post 2024 authority. Nothing, I don't think, that's really pertinent to our to the city at this point in time. Since then, too, the governor has also signed in HB 2753, groundwater replenishment for Pinal County AMA, and again, really just pertinent to the Pinal County at that point. So nothing really that's going to impact us. Transmitted to the governor at that point were these three bills. They were all vetoed. So all of these bills were vetoed at this point in time and are pretty much done. That is the wrong slide, so we'll go to this one first. Rural water. This is one that we've been looking at. So as you know, the governor put together a groundwater policy committee to establish some rules for groundwater, for rural groundwater, and for urban water. They put together a bill on rural groundwater, and this was basically the alternative bill to that. It was pushed last year, didn't get anywhere. This year they tried to push it through the Senate to see, I guess, if it could get further down the road. As far as I can see, it's still in the House. It went from the Senate, got passed, it went to the House, was put on their House caucus calendar, and doesn't look like it's moved too much past that. So it doesn't look like we're going to get any rural groundwater legislature this year. So I'll go back onto the parting thoughts. Rural groundwater regulation, extremely important. 70% of the water use for the state of Arizona, but until it gets to some bipartisan legislature, it's not going to go anywhere. Stormwater, again, a big issue, a lot of bills on stormwater this year. I think we'll see some movement on that coming forth. I think the important thing to understand is that the science to ensure that the stormwater is actually benefiting the aquifer needs to be in place as we move forward with legislature. It doesn't do any good just to have paper water that's putting on forms, but it's not actually replenishing the aquifer. So, and then conservation. We talked about conservation extensively. It's super important as we're going through our long-term water management plan. We are emphasizing conservation and demand management strategies. As we move forward with those, we may want to introduce some legislation on our own that'll help us meet the objectives of our own conservation management. So with that, just super quick, any questions?
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Leslie. Thank you, Steve. And we appreciate the update. And we'll adjourn this meeting at this time, and then we'll be reconvening for the 11:30 meeting on the general plan.